dividing by multiples of 10, which means nothing to you unless you know what a multiple of 10 is. Which means I'm going to ask somebody, what are the multiples of 10? Page, multiples of 10. Don't get those confused with factors of 10, which are different. Multiples of 10 are 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and they'll probably, that's probably the only ones, even though 100 and 120 and 110 are all multiples of 10, they're only talking about dividing by these numbers. And for the simple reason that if you can divide normal single digit division, you can divide by multiples of 10 because it's not much different except that you put a 0 after it. For example, if I'm taking 75 and dividing it by 30, okay, you just have to realize you're going to get the same digits. Okay, for example, 30, and here's where you have to keep your column straight. You know that 30 doesn't go into 7, so there shouldn't be anything above the 7. I don't really care if you put an X up there, but if you have trouble keeping things organized, maybe that's a good idea. The question is, how many times does 30 go into 75? And sometimes that gets a little confusing, but what you need to do is just think about this. Here is what you do to get close to it. You just look at the first digit here and the first digit there. How many times does 3 go into 7? That's going to get you the good idea how many times 30 goes into 70, which Kara says 2 times. So off to the side, if you do 30 times 2, you get 60. Is 60 going to be enough? Well, let's try. I put a 2 there. I put my 60 down here. I subtract. Can I get a remainder of 15?
Yes.
I sure can. The only rule is this number can never be the same or bigger than this number. As long as this is less than that number, you're fine. So yeah, you're going to get 2 with a remainder of 15. And that would be your answer for that problem there. Or let's try one that's maybe a little goofier there. How about 60 into 725? 60 into 725. Just like we talked about before, I make sure you don't put anything above that 7. Now you want to look at how many times will 60 go into 72. Again, think of the beginning digits. How many times will 6 go into 7?
Once.
Just once. 60 times 1 is 60. Let's try that. If I put my 1 there and I get my 60 there and I do my subtracting, is 12, can I get 12 when I subtract? Yes, because it's less than 60. I bring down my next one, and here maybe is where it gets confusing to you again. How many times will 60 go into 125? Now, because you have 3 digits down here, you ask yourself, how many times will 6 go into 12? That's going to give you the good idea of what you should use. And Maddie says twice. So you do 60 times 2, which ends up being 120. That looks like a pretty good guess there. I put my 2 down there. I get my 120. Do my subtracting. Is 5 an okay remainder? Sure is. So remainder 5 is the answer. Let me throw another one there. How about, let's do a dollars and cents one. How about 20 into $3.20? It might be a good idea in division. You just kind of bring the decimal. The decimal goes right above where the division thing is, so that's where the decimal is going to go. Does 20 go into 3? No, so you can feel free to put a 0 there because if money, we can put a 0 there. Does 20 go into 32, and if so, how many times? Again, think of how many times the 2 goes into a 3, Grace. Just once. Let's see what happens if I do 1. I write my 1 times 20 is 20, subtract. Is 12 a okay thing to get when you subtract? Yeah, because it's less than this. I bring down. How many times does 20 go into 120? And again, think about how many times 2 will go into 12. How many times, Isabel, does 2 go into 12? 2 going to 12.
6.
6, and what is 20 times 6? 120, so that kind of worked out nicely for us. So my answer is 16 cents. That would be a good idea. Let me give you one to try. How about this one? How about 50 into 610? 50 into 610. Go ahead and do that one for me. Raise your hand when you get an answer for that. 50 into 610. Control thing, where you at? 15 into 610. 50 into 610. Let's take a gander here. Nothing above the 6, because 50 doesn't go into 6. How many times will 50 go into 61, or how many times will 5 go into 6? Kara?
Once.
Just once. So you get your 50. Most of you got this way. A couple of you struggled after this. When you subtract, 0 from 1 is 1, 5 from 6 is 1. Is 11 okay to have? Yes. Now you bring down the next thing, and now it's 50 into 110. You do the same thing there. How many times will 5 go into 11? That's how you figure out if you're close there. Jill says, twice Jill says, 50 times 2 is 100. So I get 100 there, and then I subtract. I get 10 left over. Can I have 10 left over? Yes. So that is my remainder. If you don't get that stop there, let me know. Otherwise, I'm kind of assuming that you're all kind of on the same